Councillor Vaughn.
The last meeting, we had questions raised about the bird sanctuary and the status of the bird sanctuary. Do we have any clarification of that?
Yes, we do, through you, Mr. Chair. It's not an official bird sanctuary, but Nancy Gaffney is here also from the TRCA, and she has written a letter into city planning on this matter. I don't know if the question really for details should go to her.
Is she available?
Yes, she's right on the other side.
Sorry, I don't.
Nancy?
Nancy? Oh, that's all right.
How are you? The question is about the bird sanctuary and what its actual legal status is.
Give me a break.
It's beautiful. You brought birds with you.
The name, the Toronto Island Bird Sanctuary, is actually a name that has just been generated over time, and it actually has no official designation as such.
Should it?
It absolutely should.
And what would be required to elevate its status so that it became a protected bird sanctuary instead of just one in name only?
The sanctuary designation comes by through the Canadian Wildlife Service or Environment Canada, which is a federal agency.
Oh, great.
So there's a lot of criteria that has to be met. But looking at all of our data and information that we have, which is considerable, it meets much of the criteria that it needs to. It has to be, as I said, designated by a federal agency, so we can certainly pursue that with the Canadian Wildlife Service. No sanctuaries have been designated since 1971, so it'd be nice to have one soon.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? As long as there's no oil underneath the ground, I guess. but in terms of the process to nominate, is that something which council does or which the TRCA does?
The City of Toronto could certainly do that, and they could do that through a motion from council, certainly.
Okay. In terms of the risk to birds at that sanctuary, just to unpack it for us for a moment, why is that bird sanctuary so critical?
It is so critical because it provides foraging opportunities for the birds that are actually nesting and living at Tommy Thompson Park, but is also critical because of its migratory function. So when birds are coming from the north and the south, it's a critical peninsula as well as the Tommy Thompson Park. So it's
to get them across the lake on their journey south.
That's right. They're quite desperate by the time they get to the North Shore, and it provides perfect opportunity. And
these are largely the songbirds and the endangered species, which we know and love as sort of the colorful birds and the singing birds of the north and the cottage country.
That's right.
And if we lose that sanctuary, how many other sanctuaries along the North Shore of the lake have been lost in recent years? Are we building sanctuary or are we losing sanctuary generally across Lake Ontario?
I don't have that data in front of me, but I would guess that we're losing sanctuaries because they are not protected.
Right, and we haven't done much since 1971?
Federally, no. But the Ministry of Natural Resources has designated provincially significant wetlands, which Toronto Islands has several. And the City of Toronto also has environmental significant areas which offer a level of protection through your official plan. However, it's generally related to development, not to an expansion, so it wouldn't necessarily be applied in this situation.
But there may be an opportunity there to as well designate as an environmentally sensitive area.
That's right.
Okay, and in terms of bird strikes, what birds are there year-round? What is the population? When you said the Tommy Thompson Park and it sort of creates a habitat for birds that don't migrate necessarily but stay, what's the profile of the bird population that's sort of there on a more regular basis?
Well, it's generally the larger waterfowl, so cormorants, geese, the larger
geese.
Terns.
Right. Swans?
Absolutely.
Major swans?
That's right.
Right, okay. And in terms of the process to keep the birds away from the airplanes, how's that being managed?
Today, it's I would not suggest it's being managed outside the airport boundary itself. So they do have wildlife management techniques within the boundary of the airport, but it does not apply to Tommy Thompson Park.
Who has been controlling those populations, and how is that control being exercised?
Tommy Thompson Park is owned by the TRCA and jointly operated and managed by the City of Toronto with us. So TRCA is undertaking the population management at Tommy Thompson Park.
Does the Port Authority do anything along the shoreline to control bird populations? Oiling eggs, breaking up nests? Is that part of the Port Authority's function?
They do not do anything outside of the city airport boundary.
Okay. And in terms of the conflict between birds and airplanes, is that a major source of concern for conservationists?
It is the primary concern for the Conservation Authority. Unfortunately, we have no jurisdiction within this area because it is the Toronto Port Authority jurisdiction. So from Ashbridges Bay over to Ontario Place, TRCA has no regulations that we can apply. However, we have significant interest, as I mentioned, as a landowner to adjacent to the airport. But bird strikes are our biggest issue, and that's, our populations are increasing, although they are a stable increase. Tommy Thompson Park is an important bird area, but it does not offer it any protection as that global designation. So, the populations are going to continue, and we're just concerned that if the jets come in, or even if a current situation that there's more strikes that are being seen, that Port Authority will look to TRCA to start managing the populations, which we are currently managing by non-lethal methods, but we're concerned that it may be forced upon us, which we're not.
We'd have to cull the birds in order to operate the airport. And culling the birds would require damaging the habitat, because it's the habitat that attracts them. And so if we damage the habitat to control the large birds, we'll damage the habitat that is critical infrastructure for the small birds.
Absolutely, yes.
And
They're linked.
You can't just get rid of the big birds. You have to get rid of all of the birds.
That's right. It's nests primarily, and it would be a lethal cull, which would make the difference. Oiling the eggs would not manage population enough to satisfy the.
We'd have to destroy the bird sanctuary.
That's right.
Okay. In terms of jets versus turboprops, do you know which one is more dangerous for birds?
It is my understanding from our biologists that the jets are far more dangerous because they come in faster and make less noise. With the turboprops, the birds generally get out of the way. And we're also concerned with the larger intake for the engines, that it could take in a number of birds at once, as opposed to a propeller, just deflecting a bird. It would be ingested, which could be very critical.
And it's not just critical for the birds, it's also critical for the people flying the plane.
Well,
Jet
that's right.
strikes on a jet engine are actually more dangerous than they are for a turboprop.
That's right, and it would be our suggestion that public safety would always come first, and that's why we're concerned that population management might be an issue if more strikes and more public safety issues arise.
So it's more dangerous with a jet, more frequently dangerous with a jet, and therefore the culling and the destruction of habitat would become a higher imperative than it currently is if we expanded the airport with jets.
Yes.
And if we expand it with more flights, it creates an equal risk to the bird population.
Yes.
And just be clear, this is globally important, this site. It's not just a question of being a nice place to bird watch on the island. This is part of the ecosystem that sustains songbirds in Ontario.
Tommy Thompson Park is the important bird area right now, but the Toronto Island area is certainly qualified to have that designation as well.
Thank you.
Councillor McMahon.
Just to follow up with the birds with Nancy. So the island is not designated as a sanctuary. So right now its protected pieces include the provincially significant wetland complex, area of natural and scientific interest, and 4 environmentally significant areas.
That's right.
Right? And there's added protection, indirect protection through the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Act, Municipal Act, Endangered Species Act, Lake and Rivers Improvement Act, Conservation Lands Act, Conservation Authorities Act, Environmental Assessment Act, and the Ontario Water Resources Act.
Yes, that's right, but they are provincial legislation, which the Port Authority is not compelled to comply with as a federal agency.
So a provincial agency does not have to, okay, wow.
The federal
Okay,
agency does.
Okay, sorry, federal, oh, wow. Okay, so what kind of protection then will how strong is the protection for the birds on the island with these?
I would say if it was a new development application, your protection would be very strong through the city's official plan policies. However, depending on how it's categorized, whether it's a just a simple extension to address safety needs for the longer runways, then it would be difficult to use your official plan policies, perhaps.
So the way to ensure the birds are protected is to go after the designation for sanctuary.
Yes.
Thank you.